On Christmas Day 2025, in a quiet home near Stanford, California, a 79-year-old man passed away, surrounded by his family. There was no breaking news banner, no market shock, no crowd outside the gate. Most of America had never even heard his name. But here's the thing. If you have ever used a personal computer, any personal computer, you have touched this man's work. The chips that made it affordable, the graphics that made it visual, the invisible logic that made it think. He came to this country as a farmer's son who once walked barefoot on a dirt road just to reach school. He left it as, by many estimates, the richest Filipino in America, a fortune some placed as high as $5 billion. He never confirmed a number. He hated being asked. Tonight, we are telling the story he never told loudly himself, the quiet king of Filipino-America, the dynasty he raised, and the foggy little city that crowned him. This is Asian Dynasty. And this is Pinoy royalty. Start with the fog. Just south of San Francisco, pressed up against the Pacific, sits a city of about 100,000 people called Daly City. Row after row of small pastel houses stacked shoulder to shoulder across the hills, built by a developer named Henry Delger back when they sold for the price of a used car today. Drive those rows now and you will hear Tagalog at the bakery, see balikbayan boxes in the garages, and smell adobo drifting over Westlake. Because today, roughly 1 in every 3 residents of Daly City is Filipino, about 33% at the last census, the highest concentration of Filipino-Americans in any mid-sized city in the entire United States. Filipinos around the world call it the Pinoy capital. Its sister city is Quezon City in Metro Manila, and every June for more than a decade now, the Philippine flag has been raised right over Daly City Hall. After the 1965 Immigration Act opened America's door and fair housing laws opened the suburbs, Filipino nurses, engineers, sailors, and teachers poured into these hills, family by family, through the 70s and 80s. They filled the pews of the churches, staffed the hospitals of San Francisco, and built businesses along Mission Street until parts of it felt like a little Manila. They shopped at Saramonte Center, where the food court now smells like home. An anthropologist named Benito Vergara spent years studying this community and gave his book the only title that fit, Pinoy Capital. They turned a fog belt suburb into the capital of Filipino America. Now here is the honest part, the part most channels would skip. The richest Filipino family in America never actually lived on these foggy streets. Their empire was built about 20 miles south in the sunshine of Silicon Valley, but every kingdom has a capital, and every capital claims its royalty. And when the Pinoy capital of America looks for the family that proved what a Filipino immigrant could truly become in this country, every flag, every classroom, and every proud grandmother on these hills points to a single name, Banatao. Dado Banatao. Everyone called him Dado. He was born on May 23, 1946, in Iguig, a small farming town in the Cagayan Valley in the far north of the Philippines. His father, Salvador, was a rice farmer who worked the paddies. His mother, Rosita, kept house for other families. Their son walked barefoot along a dirt road to reach Malabac Elementary School. No shoes, no electricity waiting at home. Nothing about that boy's file said future billionaire. But his parents made one decision that changed the entire bloodline. They decided their son would study, no matter what it cost them. He earned his way into the Jesuit-run Ateneo de Tuguegarao for high school. Then he took on Manila itself, enrolling at the Mapua Institute of Technology in electrical engineering. He graduated cum laude. Job offers came, including one from Meralco, the biggest power company in the Philippines. A safe salary, a respected title, the obvious path for a farmer's son. He turned it down. Instead, Dado Banatao signed on as a trainee pilot with Philippine Airlines. And that one strange left turn changed everything, because aviation put him next to aircraft, and aircraft put him next to Boeing. The American giant hired the young Filipino engineer, and soon he was in Seattle working as a design engineer on a brand new airplane called the Boeing 747, the jumbo jet. A farm boy from Iguig, drawing systems for the most famous aircraft in the world. And he was still just getting started. Boeing gave him the chance to stay in America. He used it to walk into Stanford University, where in 1972 he finished a master's degree in electrical engineering and computer science. In those same years, he sat in on a scrappy hobbyist gathering called the Homebrew Computer Club, trading ideas alongside 2 young tinkerers named Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. The personal computer was about to be born, and the barefoot boy from Cagayan was standing in the delivery room. Through the 70s, he sharpened his craft inside National Semiconductor, Intersil, and Commodore, where he designed the first calculator built around a single 16-bit microprocessor chip. In 1981, at a company called Seek Technology, he developed the world's first 10-megabit Ethernet CMOS chip, the technology that let computers talk to each other cheaply, Then came the move that changed personal computing forever. In 1984, with his partner Francis Siu and about $500,000, he started a motherboard company called Mostron. A year later, in 1985, he co-founded Chips and Technologies. Here was the problem they attacked. IBM's personal computer needed a whole board crowded with expensive chips just to function. Dado compressed that crowd into a tiny handful. His chipset made the PC dramatically cheaper to build, which made it dramatically cheaper to buy, which is a huge part of why a computer ended up on your desk and not just in a corporate basement. Chips and Technologies pulled in $12 million in revenue in its first 4 months. 22 months after founding, it went public on Wall Street. And in 1996, Intel bought the company for about $300 million. But Dado had already moved on to his next empire. In 1989, he co-founded S3 Graphics with Ron Yara in Santa Clara, building some of the first chips that could accelerate graphics, the images, windows, and colors on your screen. He pushed a concept called the local bus that let data move faster inside the machine. S3 raised $30 million in its public offering, and by 1996, it was the leader of the entire graphics accelerator market. 3 companies founded, 2 taken public, 1 sold to Intel. The quiet man had become one of the most successful chip entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley history of any nationality. The press reached for the only comparison that made sense to them and started calling him the Filipino Bill Gates. In 1993, America pinned the Ellis Island Medal of Honor on the immigrant from Iguig. In 1997, the president of the Philippines, Fidel Ramos, personally handed him the Pamana ng Pilipino Award, the country's honor for Filipinos abroad who bring glory to the homeland. A rice farmer's son decorated by 2 nations. Quick pause. Be honest with me. Before today, had you ever heard the name Dado Banatao? Type yes or no in the comments and tell me what city you're watching from, because I read every single one. And stay with me, because the second half of this story is where the money turns into something much bigger than money. In 2000, Dado made the move that separates the rich from the truly powerful. He stopped building companies and started building builders. He launched Tallwood Venture Capital with $300 million of funding, and every single dollar of it came out of his own pocket. No outside investors. His own winnings pushed back onto the table. Forbes put him on its Midas list of the world's top technology investors 5 years running, from 2002 to 2006. He backed CITRIS, one of the first companies to put GPS, military satellite navigation, into ordinary civilian hands years before your phone could find a restaurant. One of his portfolio companies, a team of fewer than 20 employees, sold for more than $1 billion. So how rich was the king? Here is the truth. Nobody knows. He never appeared on the Forbes billionaires list because Forbes could never see inside the fortune. Estimates from Philippine and American press ran anywhere from just under $2 billion to $5 billion. He never confirmed a number. Journalists who met him kept describing the same scene: a man in a simple button-down polo and dark trousers who waves away every question about his net worth and then lights up like a schoolboy the moment you ask about circuits. In 2018, he put it this way: in terms of absolute brilliance, I am way below the curve. I really believe it is the effort and hard work that matter more than pure brilliance. Now, let's be honest about the other side too. This was not a man pretending to be poor. There were homes. There were fast cars. There was a private jet he flew for family trips. And even at age 53, he admitted he still could not quite believe he was able to buy his first plane. This was not stealth poverty. This was royalty that never needed a parade. And royalty is never just one man. It is a house. Standing beside him for 53 years was his wife, Maria. Together, they raised 3 children, and here is where this becomes a true dynasty. His son Ray earned a doctorate and became a scientist and entrepreneur. His son Deezy and his daughter Tala both graduated from the University of California, Berkeley. In 2010, Ray and Desi founded their own company, Entropy Resins, building plant-based epoxy used in surfboards and advanced materials. And in 2018, it was acquired by Guggen Brothers, the very epoxy giant the brothers had grown up admiring. Ray went on to direct projects at X, the moonshot factory of Google's parent company. 9 grandchildren now carry the name, but the family's real signature is not a company at all. It is what they gave away. At the University of California, an entire multi-campus research powerhouse carries their name, CITRIS and the Banatao Institute, pushing technology for health, climate, and society. The Banatao Family Filipino-American Education Fund pays for students of Filipino heritage across California to study engineering. His own foundation sends 5 brilliant scholars through engineering school in the Philippines every single year. He chaired the Philippine Development Foundation. In 2017, the Asian Institute of Management opened the Dado Banatao Incubator, which has since raised up more than 70 Filipino startups. And back in Iguig, at the little school he once walked to Barefoot, he built a modern computer center so that the next barefoot kid on that dirt road would reach the internet before reaching shoes. In the Philippines, they gave him a title no billionaire can buy, the father of the Philippine semiconductor industry. When Dado Banatao passed away on Christmas morning 2025, 5 months short of his 80th birthday, the tributes did not come from yacht clubs. They came from engineers, scholarship kids, and presidents of universities. A former Philippine finance secretary, Cesar Purisima, called him a brilliant engineer, a visionary tech entrepreneur, and a true pride of the Philippines. And in living rooms from Manila to Daly City, families who had never met him talked about him like a relative, because that is what he was to them. Proof. Proof that the accent was not a ceiling. Proof that a farmer's son could out-engineer the entire valley. Proof that you could win the whole game and never once raise your voice. So what does Pinoy royalty actually mean? It was never the jet. It was never the mansions. Real royalty is measured by what a family does for people who can never pay them back. The Banatao crown is a scholarship. The throne is a research lab. The palace is a computer center at the end of a dirt road in Cagayan. And the kingdom is every Filipino kid in Daly City who opens a laptop tonight, doing homework on technology a barefoot boy helped invent, and realizes quietly that the ceiling was never real. That is the inheritance, not the estimated billions, whatever the real number was, the permission. Because before Dado, a Filipino name on a Silicon Valley office door was a curiosity. After Dado, it was a precedent. Engineers who never met him got funded because he existed. Scholarship kids who never met him got degrees because he paid. That is a different kind of compounding, and it never shows up on a balance sheet. On the first Monday of every June, the Philippine flag still rises over Daly City Hall, snapping in that cold Pacific wind. The fog still rolls over the pastel houses. And somewhere on those hills, a grandmother is telling a kid the same 9 words that built this entire story. Study hard. It changed everything for the Banataos. If this story moved you, the Dynasty Files are just getting started. There is a whole map of hidden Asian fortunes on this channel, from the richest dynasty in Hong Kong to the tycoon who built a Chinese Beverly Hills. Tell me in the comments which detail of Dado's story surprised you most. And if you want more stories the loud money never tells, you know what to do. This is Asian Dynasty, where the quietest fortunes tell the loudest stories.